every single coffee shop, every single day is calling up that call centre to order their food for the next day. So they'd have a printed out form in front of them, and they'll be like, 3 BLTs, 3 chicken and bacon on the phone every day. So thousands and thousands of people calling up.
Hello, I'm Dr. Becky Sage, co-host of Founded and Grounded, and I'm here today with Ollie to discuss today's episode. Hi Ollie, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Yeah, really looking forward to speaking to today's guest. We actually recorded the conversation a couple of years ago, and it's great that it's finally getting out there into the wild because he is an amazing founder with a whole ton of experience. So can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, I learned so much from this episode, as we do from all of our episodes. So, Ollie, who have we got on the show today?
Yeah, so I spoke to Simon Boss, who is founder of a venture development agency called Gravitywell, but also he spun out a business from his own agency, a food-related manufacturing software business called Mezze. So he really does practice what he preaches.
And if you're not sure yet what a venture development business is, then you will find out in this episode. All I'm going to say for now is that it's helped Simon to develop so many amazing insights, a lot of experience. And like you just said, Ollie, he's been able to apply that to his own spin out, but also helped so many other founders along the way. So let's jump straight into his story.
Simon, good morning. Welcome to Founded and Grounded.
Morning, Ollie. Great to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you here and talking about your journey and experience in the world of business. So it's a pleasure to have you here. First of all, Simon, I know you've got an amazing background in tech. You're a tech titan with more than 2 decades of experience. You're the founder of Gravitywell and more recently Mezze. Can you take us back to 2001 and tell us how you got started in the first place?
Wow, that does feel like a long time ago now, doesn't it? It felt like the internet was really starting to take off, and it was a really exciting time. And I'd got my first job, and I was producing 3D graphics and animation for CD-ROMs that were being sold to Cisco Systems and people like that. And I, looking back, very arrogantly assumed I could do a better job on my own. And then the next 2 years were hell because I couldn't. But eventually came through and started an agency. Started initially in Bath, actually, and we were sort of a support agency with a technical side of a lot of brand and marketing agencies at the time who were, the internet was blowing their minds and they were terrified of where branding and marketing was going. So we would come in and help, no, it's okay, this is still going to work. We can produce great stuff on screens. It's going to be good. So that's where it all started, really. And I found over time that the bit I loved most was working with entrepreneurs. It wasn't getting that much satisfaction from building websites for corporations and things like that. I wasn't getting the excitement from that. But when someone came in with a crazy idea and a dream, you think, yes, I'm with you. I want this to work. And so we just try and find a way to make that happen. And that's really, Gravitywell then really morphed into, we're a kind of hybrid venture studio now. So we help entrepreneurs on their journey right from the very start, right from the, I had an idea in the shower this morning and I thought I'd give you guys a call and talk about it. Like, great, come in, let's talk about it. And one of the exciting things, obviously, is that it could just be anything. It could be any topic, any industry. And someone spotted an opportunity or there's a problem they want to solve. And that's just something to get out of bed for me and get excited about. And then bringing in others and to fill out the team that also get that excited about that kind of thing that was really it for me. So that's what I've been focused on much more recently.
Amazing. And obviously you've got this bug and this infectious energy from founders, which obviously a lot of our listeners share, so do I. So how do you take that idea and then sort of take that into forming the bare bones of a business?
It varies so much. We've got to sort of get aligned with what the problem is. So we all the opportunity is. Those are the two ways of looking at it. And then we're essentially getting into the minds of initially the founder, who is this entrepreneur, and what are they trying to achieve? How can we work best together? What is it, this opportunity they've spotted? And then we're getting into the industry and then the users, usually at the end of the day. Like, who are these people? How do we help them? So there's a lot of sort of workshopping, user testing, research, that kind of thing. And it's fun. It's fun. We get in a room and we thrash this out together with Post-it notes. Obviously, over COVID, we digitised, so that still works. But now, great, we can get back in the room and do this stuff. It gets a bit crazy. You have all these wacky ideas, and that's just a really fun part of the process. And that's before we built anything, before anything's really been constructed. So, yeah, it does vary a lot, but ultimately it comes down to high energy workshops and bits of research and user testing. Let's build a little prototype. Let's get it out to people and see what they think. We might create a steering group to get, in the case of an ADHD project that we worked on, we actually got a bunch of people together. I mean, that was hard because they've got ADHD, so it was hard to get everybody in at the same time. That was a unique challenge for a steering group. But that was brilliant. That gave us the insight that we needed and the confidence we needed in the project that we were building to move that forward.
And the clients that approach you with these crazy ideas that they've dreamt up in the shower or wherever they are, how do you take them on that journey? I mean, typically, do they have funding already, or are they self-funding it? What's the kind of makeup of your client base?
It's very varied. So some people have got their own resources. Some people, we would actually advise them not to use their own resources. So there was an example a few years. There was a nurse who had a great idea and she was willing to sort of cash in her pension and spend all the money on it. We said, no, I don't think you should do that. I think you should develop the idea further, and if it really has got legs, go and seek investment. But please don't use your pension on that. But there's other people where that makes sense. They can do that. Often we'll help entrepreneurs get investment, whether that's through grant funding or investors, different stages, friends and family, obviously initially, and then through our network to help them. We'll work on pitch decks or prototypes or whatever material is going to help de-risk the project for the investor, because we're so close to it by that point. We've really got under the skin of this problem that we're exploring. We're in a really good position to say, we understand this so well that we can probably explain this really well to an investor and get them on board. So, yeah, it's very varied. You had the Rhoda guys on recently. I mean, they were incredible. I think they got all of their funding in 6 weeks from start to finish. Absolutely incredible. I've never seen that before. But that was just a fantastic journey with them. They, as I'm sure you remember, they just got such a right attitude around entrepreneurship, open-minded, transparent, clear thinking about everything, and that's very convincing for investors as well, right? So that was great fun being part of that journey with them as well.
Amazing. And how do you go on that kind of customer discovery phase with your clients? Like, if there's somebody listening to this thinking, how do I go about that? Like, how do I get that feedback from the marketplace, which is so important?
Yes, again, it sort of depends on what you're trying to achieve, but almost always there's a way you can move forward. If you've got access to the kind of users that you expect to be using your products or service, ultimately you've got to speak to them. You can arrange telephone interviews at the very least, but otherwise you might want to do a workshop or a focus group with them. You might want to mock up screens of whatever it is you're building and test that with them. But you've just got to get out there, and these are not expensive routes. But people shy away from them because it feels time consuming. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that say, we don't need to do user testing. We'll just build it. Like, no. You've really got to thrash this out with the users, because it will not only will it de-risk the project, but they'll come up with stuff that you will never have thought of. And that is gold, either because it's fixing something that was wrong with your prototype or an idea that you hadn't explored that could bring in even more revenue. So absolutely, you need to be speaking to your target market. Lots of different ways of doing that, but definitely get on and do it.
And has your approach evolved and morphed over time, given the change and pace of technology? I mean, you were talking at the start there about CD-ROMs, and now in 2024 and, Gen AI and lots of interesting tech that's now on the scene. So has your approach changed at all over time? Yeah,
the ability to get started with a piece of technology is improved massively. So there's so many tools out there to get going, which is brilliant. So that means that user testing we were just talking about could actually be something that's built and a technical prototype rather than just a clickable series of screens. So you can more easily test more complicated concepts before you go into a full build, before you start building that MVP. the tech that's out there now, low code, no code tools, AI tools, just to get all of that moving is really powerful. And again, very low cost. You can just get started straight away. If you've got a crazy idea, if you think you can solve a problem, you can probably get started yourself. That also is incredibly impressive to investors. You might have got a little bit of traction, a little bit of feedback, but the fact you've gone out there and done that yourself is very compelling.
Amazing. And talking of your client base, do you get anybody that's come to you at the, they've already built out the MVP and, something that hasn't gone quite well and they've come in a bit later rather than at the concept stage?
Yes, quite a lot. And that can go a number of ways. If something's been built very badly, often the request is, can you unpick this and fix it? And unfortunately, the answer is often no. We're going to have to bin this. If you go too cheap on the build, if you cut too many corners, you can't rescue that project and have to rebuild. In some circumstances, that might be fine. So we talk about disposable prototypes or disposable versions of your platform, and you just accept that you're going to have to bin that, and that's fine. But yes, it is. You can see entrepreneurs' hearts breaking when you say, no, this is no way of fixing this. It's gone. So yeah, we do get that. Sometimes it's a matter of simply that transition from startup to scale up. We've proven the point, we've got the investment money, and now we need to make sure that this doesn't fall over and we get 10,000 users on it. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of refactoring work at that point, because scalability of a big enterprise SaaS platform, for example, it means something completely different to a prototype. So there's usually quite a lot of rebuilding to be done there. And yes, that's the kind of thing that we do as well.
And Simon, I know you don't just give out this advice to your entrepreneurs, you actually take note and stock of this yourself. And that was the formation of a SaaS startup called Mezze 5 years ago. So can you tell us what problem you're solving with Mezze and how you got started with the business?
Yeah, I can give you a bit of the origin story there. So Gravitywell was brought in to consult for a food-to-go company. They're called a Deli Foods, about 400 million turnover, about 2016. And their challenge to us was to say, we want to modernize as a business. We know that software can probably help us. We've got a call center in India with 20 people receiving calls. Okay, what's going on here? And essentially they were their customers, who might be a chain of coffee shops, for example. Every single location, every single coffee shop, every single day is calling up that call center to order their food for the next day or the day after. So they'd have a printed out form in front of them. They'll be like, 3 BLTs, 3 chicken and bacon on the phone every day. So thousands and thousands of people calling up. So the food manufacturer said to us, this can't be right. There's got to be a way of digitizing this. And we came in and said, obviously, sure. We'll get Magento or Shopify, we'll tweak that a little bit, and we're problem solved. 6 months later, we're like, oh, I see, right? Food manufacturing, especially short shelf life, is really complicated. There's loads going on. Just a few sort of easy to understand concepts. There's the idea of cut-off times. So if you're ordering products for next day, there's got to be a time at which it's too late to order, right? That's a cut-off time. So it gives the manufacturer enough time to manufacture those sandwiches and then send it. So you need to be able to track in the platform what time of day it is and make sure people don't order on the wrong after the wrong time in order for delivery the next day. So that kind of thing doesn't exist in off-the-shelf systems. Date-led ordering is another one. So if you were buying your groceries online, you choose the items you want, and then the platform tells you what day you can have it. But if you're running that coffee shop, you're saying, I need the products in tomorrow. So now you tell me what can be made in time and delivered to our location at that time. We work backwards. So that's another concept. So that's the kind of thing that Mezze does. So we provide this branded platform for food manufacturers, and they give it to their B2B customers, and they log in and they do customer service and credits and returns, substitutions, all the stuff that goes on. All the communication now goes through the platform. So now you save all of that time. For Deli Foods, they were able to immediately stop that call center. And their customers are much happier because the whole process works much better, and there's far fewer mistakes. So that was the birth of Mezze. We realized that if that manufacturer had those problems, then probably they all do, and yes, they do. So we're on that journey now of onboarding different food manufacturing verticals. We've got most of the sandwich space, which is thrilling. Working our way through the rest of food to go and now into bakery and ingredients and things like that. So it's very interesting. It's very old-fashioned industry, as you can probably imagine. technology is not to be trusted, and often businesses have been burnt by software providers in the past, maybe 10, 20 years ago. And so it's quite hard to get past that distrust of software businesses. But we're making great progress. We're just sort of transitioning into a scale-up mode now. And very positive about the future with that.
What a great story. I mean, it sounds like you're obviously solving the efficiency for the B2B manufacturers. You're making it frictionless, easier, more simplified, and obviously taking a very complex supply chain with lots of nuances in there and making that very easy for them to do business in, which is great. And just rewinding back there, you mentioned that you initially tried to solve it with Shopify and Magento plugins and doing it for them. So how did you then go from that to actually building out a white label platform?
Yeah, I mean, it was that realization where we were having to make so many changes, and this is a problem that people come up against quite a lot in the entrepreneur space. When, for example, you're trying to modify WordPress to do what you need it to do, eventually you hit all these brick walls, and you think that we're just going to have to start again. So there was that moment when we realised there's no way we can modify things to the level that's needed. We're going to have to build this from scratch. And that was a big undertaking, and kudos to Deli Foods for really going on that journey with us, because that for food manufacturers is a bold step, and it's a huge investment, big investment of time, a lot of commitment. So it took us about 2 years to build that out. It was a lot of work, a lot of challenges in that, but great result in the end.
How do you stay kind of open-minded and curious when you're working with all these great entrepreneurs?
I don't know where that comes from, but for me, for some reason, that's very natural. I don't know how I find that energy to keep asking questions and maintain that curiosity, but I think I've always had it. I think it was a big moment when I sort of overcome the fear of asking questions or challenging entrepreneurs. That was a big moment, I'd say, actually, is once I realised that it's okay to challenge an entrepreneur, even if they're saying, I know everything about my market, I know everything about the industry, I know everything about my users. There was probably a moment in my past when I thought, hang on, I'm going to say something, because I don't think that's right. And then usually entrepreneurs are actually quite receptive to it. Initially it's quite shocking, because they're who's this guy? He knows nothing about my industry, questioning. And then you work your way through it. There's ways to be delicate. You work your way through it and you realise, wow, actually there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And why are users behaving like this? We need to find this out. Let's go and find out. Great. So I guess it's just that satisfaction of then the end result that sort of ties it back to, we were curious, we asked some questions, and we've got a better result. I think it's that loop that it's like a feedback loop, isn't it? That's probably reinforced it over time.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think you find a lot of founders, like you say, are very knowledgeable, maybe very technical in their particular industry, but you're coming at it from a different vantage point, and you can see problems that they may have not have spotted, and actually just questioning them, like you say, and actually saying, have you thought of X, Y, Z? And it's just that, I suppose, that different way of thinking that brings a better solution to the marketplace. And so I'm guessing that is a lot of your added value that you bring to your partners.
Yes, I think so. I think, I feel like we've seen it all by now. And we've seen all the things that can go wrong. And we spot the red flags right at the start. When entrepreneurs perhaps don't have the right kind of attitude, you just being aware of that helps you guide them to solutions without having to be confrontational about it. So the questions that you raise and the curiosity that you show, I suppose, then helps steer them to something that's a bit more helpful for their journey. There is still the assumption that technology should be cheap. I think that's reinforced by a lot of these tools being available and seemingly very powerful. I think what people don't then realise is the expectations of the end user are much higher than they were 20 years ago for a web app, for example. If you're going to put your money in a subscription model in a web app, it's got to be bloody good these days, right? But that means you've got to do more work in order to bring that quality that users expect. So then the cost goes back up. So that is usually quite difficult for entrepreneurs to wrestle with when they get that sense, as we were talking about earlier, that I could go to a platform myself and start building it myself. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. And probably some people will use it. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where people aren't going to want to pay for that. There'll be a big proportion of your target market needs more than that, and that's where the expense comes in.
And for a lot of people listening, they might be a first-time founder, they might be going into it a bit naively, but with a lot of energy and passion and enthusiasm for their startup. What are some of those red flags that maybe they need to reconsider for themselves?
I think we've touched on a couple already, but it's really worth underlining. The assumption that you know everything about your market, you know everything about your users, really helps to be open-minded about that. We rely on, to some degree, our clients being subject matter experts, and that's really important. But it really benefits them if they can be open-minded about everything they think they know and go on that journey with them. And it's also, people will often have a model in their mind of what they want that MVP to be. And again, ideally just don't be attached to that, because there's so many different ways of looking at it. It could be much bigger, it could be dramatically smaller. Another thing is sort of related is like, what are those short-term goals? Are we trying to get traction? Are we trying to get investment? Are we trying to prove a point to the Innovate UK to get a grant or whatever? We're trying to align with what their goals are. Those are very different kind of end results. We might take a very different journey to get there. So all of that, I guess, comes under that category of open-mindedness. I suspect you've spoken about that a lot with the entrepreneurs, but it's just so true. It might be cliche, but it's absolutely vital to go into that with that open mind.
Yeah, I mean, the market is all powerful, right? People will vote with their feet. And Simon, I know you mentioned before in our kind of pre-chat about being an introvert. So I'm just keen to explore how has that affected your journey in the world of startups and business?
Yeah, I've always been an introvert, and how that manifests really in business is that I'm far less likely to seek out other people and far less likely to look for advice, initiate meetings that myself, I suppose, people will invite me for meetings, but I'm less likely to reciprocate. And it's only later in my career that I realised that was actually quite a problem. That was really holding me back. COVID sort of was quite interesting because we all started using video calls, obviously, and that didn't have anywhere near the same level of pressure and anxiety for me. And I could just see this sort of face on a screen rather than, being present in that room with someone else and having to interact more. And that really helped me get over a lot of the downsides of being an introvert. And then, I was able to start speaking publicly and do things like this as well, which is great. It's a huge achievement. Still got anxiety, absolutely. But that was a real problem for a long time. And it was very frustrating, actually. I just not being able to label it and not understanding it well enough was causing me a lot of frustration. Why am I not interacting with people? Why am I not networking? Why am I not getting in help from people? Months would pass when I haven't really engaged anyone other than a client, and that's not great. It could be much better. So recognizing that, starting to understand it, starting to tackle it a little bit has improved my work life enormously. The introvertedness doesn't go away, but it's just about recognizing it and understanding what can help me, like things like this, which is great.
Thank you for being so open there, Simon, and obviously great to hear how you've been on that journey and you found coping mechanisms to be able to, play to your strengths and actually use it as an advantage in some ways as well, which is great to hear. Running a business can be very lonely at times as well. So how have you kind of tried to forge those relationships with people outside of your client base?
I think, it's obvious, but the teams at both businesses have been absolutely vital. Just working with great, intelligent, passionate, funny people. Sense of humour is so important. Being able to share those moments together, it just makes it all worthwhile. That, I think, has probably had the biggest impact on me being able to cope with the pressures of, I guess, running two businesses as well. It's not all great. Friendships and family life, that kind of thing, takes a huge toll, really, because of being this busy. And an introvert as well, I guess, also factors into that. So that is hard. That's challenging. I think I've got a good sort of core set of friends that have stayed with me on that journey and sort of tolerated me not being quite as available as I would like, ideally. Not being able to make every event, that kind of thing is it's not great for friendships or family. But yeah, I think if I didn't work with such incredible people, then I'd have given up a very long time ago. Fortunately, what we do, both businesses really attracts people that I want to work with, which is just great. I mean, so relieved about that. Nice people who want to do the best for the client and deliver a really good product and, have a nice working experience, work life. We're all off to Madrid in a couple of days. We're going to spend a week in Madrid working on some AI products for Mezze. So that's the kind of thing we do, and nobody's going to be anxious about that. We all get on, and we'll be eating and drinking and having a good time as well as working together. And I'm fairly sure that most businesses are not able to do that. I think there's a lot that can, but I think a lot of businesses don't have that sort of close working relationship with each other where that's possible. So I think that's where a lot of the strength comes from.
Ollie, do you remember the founder we had on the show who shared what happened to them on their fundraise?
Yeah, I mean, this one definitely stuck out in my mind. He just closed a major round within 6 weeks, and instead of celebrating that, he was having to sit in hospital with his young son. Machines beeping in the background. His wife had to step out of her career to manage everything at home.
And that's when you quoted him that line from another person who'd been on the podcast who said, at the end of the day, it's only fucking business.
It is just a business at the end of the day, and some things matter so much more. Having 2 young kids, that conversation really hit home, which is why I want to mention today's sponsor. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, all online, quote in seconds, apply in as little as 10 minutes. No medical exam, just a few health questions online, up to $3 million in coverage, some policies as low as $30 a month. Ethos helps protect the people who depend on you. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/founded. That's ethos.com/founded. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Simon seems to have that golden combination of business understanding, get up and go, but also introspection and vulnerability. And that felt really rare when I was listening to the interview. Did that feel rare in person? Were those things coming across when you were talking to him?
Yeah, Simon's definitely a unique breed of person. I feel like he's got that whole ton of experience, but that real level of like quietly self-confident, but there's no ego attached to him. Like he's got all of those years under his belt, and he's reflective, like self-aware, which I think all the best founders are.
It comes across as so powerful, doesn't it? Like actually that humility, that groundedness, that reflection. It doesn't sound like a need to prove yourself. It doesn't sound like a false confidence that can always come across quite brittle. It sounded like very grounded, which I guess is what we're all about.
Yeah, he's definitely not a kind of like fake it till you make it type person. Like he's done the hard yards, got the experience, and he lets his work do the talking.
So let's just start with some of those business savvy bits that came out. I kind of wanted to highlight these. I mean, there were so many things in this that I wanted to talk about, but we can't talk about everything. But one piece, like a very specific piece of business advice, something that he talked about, which comes up all the time actually in the coaching that I do with entrepreneurs, especially those in those early days, is the stakeholder mapping. And we don't always talk about this very much, but it's such a powerful tool for all sorts of aspects of business. Is that something that you think about? Is that something that came across when you were talking to him?
Yeah, I mean, it's essential, isn't it? If you want to really add value to each individual set of stakeholders, and often you'll find you'll probably be neglecting certain stakeholders if you haven't done this exercise. So I think it's a really good way to take that kind of zoom out helicopter view of, who are we talking to? Why are they important? How do we add value? And then you can obviously from that identify how to actually develop better relationships with those people.
I always find in health tech is a really good example because I work with a lot of health tech founders. And when a founder first starts, I think they often think like, we've got this idea, we're going to change something massive in health and we're going to do this whole intervention. And of course, as a small startup, you probably are never going to be the ones who do like that one thing that's going to change this one thing in health. And if you look at that whole stakeholder map, you start to understand where the real added value can be. I've got a few examples that I've recently been working with. So, tracker apps, for example, we see that a lot, but how does somebody distinguish themselves in the space of like health tracker apps at this point? That's really difficult. And some of the founders I worked with started to realize, and they kind of mapped out again the whole journey, the whole user journey. Who are they interacting with? The user in terms of like the person who's having the problems they're trying to solve. Who are they interacting with? Who do they come across in the NHS or in other aspects of the ecosystem? And they started to realize that rather than being a tracking tool that might be like a B2C for somebody to use at home, it could become something that actually becomes about information for the doctors and or information that can help with a meeting you might have, like we all go into the GP and we have a 10-minute slot, and that can be really tricky. How does the GP get the most out of that? How do you get the most out of that? And so that's one example of where doing that stakeholder mapping helps them to redefine the value proposition. So, and right at the beginning, I think it's really good to be able to do those kind of things.
Yeah, and right at the beginning as well, like you're essentially trying to prove the market and understand what the actual business model is. And it obviously may change. Your initial customer might not be direct to consumer at all. It might be B2B or selling into government. It really depends on where you've identified that value and what the pain points are. So I think if you go in with that mind of, right, we're going to explore and really see where we're creating the true value, then ultimately you can prove that over time.
And looking at that whole stakeholder ecosystem, which is often overlooked, and you might think you're trying to get right to the end user or that kind of far side of that stakeholder map, but actually you might find that the real business opportunity is in one of those small areas. And some of the most successful businesses, that's what they do.
Yeah, it's because it's overlooked as well. If
Yeah.
it's generally a smaller market,
Yeah.
People aren't really going after it.
Exactly. So I do love this exercise of stakeholder mapping and really understanding it. And I don't think it's just at the beginning stage either. Like, as you mentioned, the more you can understand that stakeholder map as you evolve as a business, the more you might find partners, you might understand your messaging better. You might, there's so many different things you can do.
And I think you need to reevaluate it as obviously time goes on.
Yeah.
Because things will change, particularly with obviously the rapid expansion and development of AI at the moment. Like, things are going to change quite quickly. So I think always coming back to that is important.
And it could give you creative insights that can problem solve for you in your business, where you think are we being overtaken by something? Are we actually useful anymore? Well, maybe not in the way that you thought you were going to be, but perhaps there's a different gap that you can explore. Let's move on to something quite different that came up. Introversion, big theme, and something that Simon's obviously been thinking about quite a lot. And really, for me, kind of was something that resonated a lot with the things that he was saying. What I thought was interesting is, that piece about COVID coming along and being like, oh, this actually is making life easier for me. Like, I definitely resonated with some of those things, the less social aspects of it, but then sort of rebuilding in a way that felt more powerful because you're able to have done it from kind of your point of view. So personally, I kind of had a bit of a realization around, I know this about myself, but I think sometimes you know things about yourself, but you don't put them into practice in business or in your workplace. And what I realized for me, being introverted, kind of having social aspects of autism and that drain a lot of energy, I have to be like the hermit first and then go out into the world. And so, but it's very easy to sort of either not do that, kind of run out of time of doing that, thinking you're meant to just be out there extroverting all the time. And I realized that what is really important is I carve out the time and the space to not only kind of recuperate and get my energy back, which is that kind of measure of introversion that people talk about, that's where you get your energy from, being on your own, but also if I'm going to be doing pieces of work, if I'm going to be thinking about something, actually doing that inward part first and doing the part on my own first before I then come and engage with other people. The way we do this podcast is a perfect example of that. Actually, it's like we do the notes, we listen to it, we think about it, and then we come together and we talk about it. For me, that's like a lot less energy draining than the other ways of doing things.
Yeah, and there's a structure and a process in place that's tried and tested as well. And I think sometimes when people think about extroversion and introversion, like it's obviously not binary. Like there's elements that, you know, you can have a mix of both as well. And I think it just comes back to that whole self-awareness piece of knowing what brings you energy, what drains you. How do you go about it? Because I mean, people would see you maybe, I don't know, hosting a webinar or speaking on stage and be like, oh, Becky's a massive extrovert. But that's, you know,
it's just protection for me being on stage. And that was the interesting thing that came up with Simon, because I think he's discovered that public speaking part of things. And that came up in your conversation as well. And as we were talking just now, you said, oh yeah, he's doing loads of stuff now. Like he's making lots of videos and that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's doing loads of video, which makes me, really proud of him because he, you know, was clearly struggling with a few things about saying, you know, actually going on podcasts has helped him develop that confidence and putting himself out there. And he's going to, I see him at lots of these like conference events around the world, and he's there just walking around the conference doing a live video to camera.
Love
which
it.
You know, isn't an easy thing to do. Like,
no, that's true. Everyone looks at you when you do that.
Yeah, probably start by doing it in a room by yourself with no one watching, but actually be walking around, doing it live, being conscious of people around you, then hats off to him. Like, it's brilliant.
And perhaps he's discovered the thing that I discovered, which is doing that one-to-many type activity, whether that be on social media and in a video or to camera, or on a stage, doing public speaking, still protects a lot of your energy as an introvert, because you're not having to do that kind of two-way conversation piece where you're kind of reading the other person, and especially when you're at conferences or something like that and you've got new people and there's no structure and everything else. So that one-to-many, I think, is an introvert's tool, actually, if you can overcome some of the confidence challenges with it.
That's a really interesting way of thinking of it, in terms of, if you're at an event hosting something or public speaking, then it's still one-to-many, even though there's loads of people around you, but you're not having those one-to-one interactions that are going to drain you more, on your social cues and reading people's body language and all that stuff that might bring a bit more.
You sort of do it en masse if you're speaking. It's sort of like an audience reacting isn't the same thing
as one person.
As one person. I find it a lot less scary for some reason. But also I think there's something about permissioning, right? If you've put or like somebody has allowed you to be on that stage, that audience has shown up to see that. It's almost like, oh, I've already done the hardest part here of like, this person is someone to be listened to.
You've got your ticket and you're there, aren't you?
That's how I feel about it. Yeah. So, no, I think it's really great. And I love that he brought it up. And I love that he also proved that you can have these kind of vulnerabilities, but still like really thrive in business, have a lot of success. But those things are bubbling away under the surface. And that was clearly, based on how he told his story, what was going on for him.
Yeah, I don't want to get too cheesy, but that whole iceberg analogy is so true, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, you don't know what people are going through. And also, if you're going through something, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel this. Like, sometimes if you've got those anxieties or you've got certain worries, they become such big things to you that you think they kind of overwhelm everything, and you sort of forget about the stuff that's your strengths, or the stuff you are showing up and doing, or the things that you're just thriving at. And it's only those things that you're worried about, or you think you're bad at, or you think everybody else is doing better than you, that you focus on. Yeah,
and I think if you're going through some of those worries or anxieties about, your own personal ability or whatever it is, then I think, just speak to some close friends or family and just ask them, say, what am I good at? And some of the things might surprise you as well.
Yeah. It's one of the things that happened to me is just realizing what people consistently came back and asked me to do. Maybe that's kind of a little bit further down the line, but it's very interesting. Again, if you're listening to people, and the same, I guess, in a business, if you're listening to your market, what are people responding to well? And as long as that kind of aligns with you and where you want to be going, then that's a really good indicator of maybe what you want to lean into more.
Yeah, that's your buyer's intent, isn't it, essentially, in terms of what people are saying and what they potentially want you to do.
Yeah.
Based on what they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about some of the personal challenges, but how about some of the business challenges? Let's go to part 2 and listen to some more of Simon's story.
Simon, it's probably safe to say that you've experienced a few challenges with all of your businesses throughout the 20 plus years that you've been running them. Can you try and pick out one of your favourite failures to date, and how did you overcome it?
I think a great example of that was quite a long time ago, maybe sort of 10, 12 years ago. I got together with a couple of guys. We were trying to build an online retailer of specialty and fine foods. So the concept really was being able to surface small producers of interesting food that you're not going to easily find somewhere else, and make sure that's more available to a wider market across the country. I think there's a few reasons why that didn't work so well. I think it's probably timing is a big factor. I think things like that work a lot more now. I think people, the concept of being a foodie, it's not a great name, I don't like that, but it is much more prevalent now, and people care much more about traceability, what goes in their food, and supporting local producers. So I think that an issue was retail price for things were higher. That was unavoidable. But at that time, whenever it was, sort of 12, 15 years ago, that was too much for the market. And so we really, really struggled to get a lot of traction. There were still some people that were very passionate about it, but it wasn't enough. I think the market's changed now. I think there's a lot of interest, a lot more interest in that now. But I think there's probably other ways to deliver that. And so there's a sort of bit of DNA in that, in Mezze now, and our ambitions for the future. What we want to get towards really is supporting those local producers. A lot of our clients are much, much bigger. And we want to be working with much smaller producers and making sure they get a national stage, they get front and centre in where they need to be. There's a lot of distribution and wholesalers that control that market. And if we can bypass that, then I think something really cool could happen. So we've got Pieminister from Bristol, which is quite a big name in Bristol, on the platform. They're not tiny, admittedly, but it's people like that who are trying to do something different. We've got a great brand. We want to make sure that they can get that presence in the market that they deserve. So I think that's something I've taken from that very difficult experience, failed business, a lot of time and effort, falling out with the other founders, that kind of thing. It's that there were some very tough lessons learned there that I've carried through for sure.
So Simon, running two businesses simultaneously must be hard work, it's safe to say. How do you balance your time, planning, focus, energy between running a venture agency and a SaaS platform?
I wish there was a solution to the planning bit. I mean, I have to look every morning, what the hell am I supposed to be doing today? I wish I could plan ahead more than that, but it just doesn't pan out. In an ideal world, I'd have Monday to halfway through Wednesday in one business and then the rest of the week for the other. But it cannot work like that. So I'm pulled in different directions. People put meetings in that I have no idea what I'm going into, and I just have to deal with it every day. So that isn't great. And I wish there was a solution to sort of structure things, but absolutely anything can happen with both businesses. At the same time, that is my own fault, right? I mean, I've put myself in this position. I love it. Clearly, I enjoy it. I try not to complain about it as well. I mean, because, I think it does take a toll as well, that sort of constantly pulled in different directions, not knowing where you're supposed to be each day, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I do also enjoy it. So I think it's my fault, really.
And I guess to some degree, like that being pulled in every single direction is often the feeling that obviously your target audience for Gravitywell, the early stage founders, feel in terms of a lot of uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen. So I guess you're kind of living and breathing what they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Mezze was always, my hope was always that it would be an example of, we know what we're doing at Gravitywell. We can build an enterprise platform, launch it, scale it, and it'll be its own successful business. But it is also that point around, this is how you live that life. I've now got that experience that I can talk about with entrepreneurs. These are the challenges you'll face. This is how you might, deal with it. But you've also got to face up to the fact that it's going to be bloody hard, right? There will be sacrifices. And I think that makes me and Gravitywell more relatable to those entrepreneurs. I think we can point to all of those experiences, and that'd be quite useful and reassuring to some degree for entrepreneurs.
And talking of your team, can you give an idea about the scale of your team? I mean, do you have team members that are solely responsible for working on Gravitywell and Mezze, or do some of your team members split their time between both businesses?
Yeah, well, they've been separate for about 3 years actually, but initially, yes, it was all the same group of people working on both things, and then we sort of naturally separated and then formally separated, as I say, about 3 years ago. Mezze is development heavy. We're still very much into the R&D piece. We're bringing out new products. We've always got the eyes on the next opportunity in the marketplace. As I say, food manufacturing is really old-fashioned, and it's just wide open for people that want to sort of deliver efficiencies. So there's lots of opportunities there, which is really exciting. So that's sort of dev heavy. And I guess Gravitywell is as well, is also sort of design, strategy, that kind of thing mixed in there as well. But yeah, it's mostly technical. That's where I'm more comfortable. I'm not a developer, just to make that clear. But I'm more comfortable in the technology and the R&D space myself. So I guess that's partly why the teams lean that way as well.
And talking about industries ripe for innovation and disruption, you mentioned obviously food manufacturing there being one. Can you maybe tell our listeners about any other industries that you've come across that you think are ready for being disrupted?
I don't love recruitment, and I would love to see that disrupted. I think people are trying. It's tricky, very tricky. I would love to see that sort of changed quite a lot. I think there's a lot of work going into health generally, and then mental health as a sort of subset. I still think there's opportunities there. I mean, there's a lot of talk about it, but I think I don't know if. I think there's a lot of opportunity still, and it's quite an exciting space. It's good that we're talking about mental health more. I think that's really important. So yeah, those are the two that stick out the most.
Thank you, Simon. And talking of mental health and well-being, you alluded to before about the sacrifices, the toll that running two businesses takes on you. What are some of the sacrifices that you've made along your business journey, either consciously or subconsciously?
Subconsciously, it's friends and family relationships. It's personal relationships that has been what unfortunately has fallen by the wayside, and that's something that entrepreneurs have to wrestle with. And there's definitely ways to mitigate, but you cannot have. I realised I couldn't have that sort of same friendship circle that I had in my early 20s as I'm trying to run two businesses. Just not possible. As much as I would like that, it's unmaintainable, obviously. So that's certainly a sacrifice. Other obvious ones, I suppose, are in the early days, it's just money, just income is a huge sacrifice. Unless you've got that investment money behind you, and perhaps even if you do, you don't get the luxury of spending it on yourself. So that's another sacrifice that was quite key. It's your time, so hobbies, that kind of thing, fall by the wayside, really. Again, I don't have a lot of time for hobbies. There's only a few remaining now. Again, I was much more sort of into different things when I was younger. That's all gone now. So that's the sort of stuff that's really been sacrificed for me.
Just talking of funding there, which you were referencing, obviously you help a lot of companies, whether they're looking to get their seed round or attract an angel investor or apply for Innovate UK funding. So people listening who are at that stage, what words of wisdom would you give them?
You've really got to focus on who you're speaking to. So those are three different scenarios. And I think there's a lot of people that will create a pitch deck and think, right, job done. That's it. Just show that or send that to someone. No, that's only half the job, unfortunately. You've really got to speak to the audience. So if you know who you're speaking to, what their likes are, what their background is, what their expertise is, you can better pitch to them. And that's, I can't overemphasize how important that is. It's not always possible to learn the background of the person you're about to speak to. And maybe you've just met them at an event or something. But it really will benefit you if you get to the bottom of who they are, what their interests are, what they already understand or don't understand, and pitch appropriately to them. It might completely change the pitch, but that's really important. So I think that gets missed. That's with the example of grant funding. I mean, angles like sustainability would be key if it's Innovate UK. So you probably want to be digging into what sustainability angle you might have in your business. So that's an example where the pitch might look very different. Again, it could be about the revenue potential that someone else is more interested in, whereas that will be less of a priority for grant funding, perhaps. So I think that's the point, is really do your research on who you're going to be speaking to.
Great bit of advice there, Simon. I think, for running a business, it's all about knowing your audience at the end of the day, and obviously making your pitch appropriate to them or how you communicate to those people. So great takeaway there. So Simon, you talked before about obviously business being quite a lonely place. So who keeps you grounded, motivated, emotionally supported in your life?
I guess because of the introvertedness, there isn't too much of that, and I'm kind of okay with it, but it doesn't sound great, I guess. So certainly the close friends that I've got keep me sane. Really value them. As I say, the working environment, both businesses, is just incredible. And it's not that it's a support network, but I mean, we do know each other very well, and we recognise when we're having a bad day, when things are going wrong. Everyone is able to sort of pick up where people might be having a problem and kind of run with it and support them. I think those are the areas that are really sort of keep me going, and it's absolutely vital. As I was saying earlier, I mean that working environment being so strong and supportive, it just wouldn't be possible otherwise. But yeah, it all comes back to my introvertedness. Really, is that I'm not seeking those people, and I'd strongly recommend, even if you are an introvert, try to break through that and find those people. I have had bits of mentorship, and they've been fantastic. And there's no reason why I shouldn't be doing that more, other than my natural inclination not to seek it out. So as I say, if you really should try to create those. That network of people that can support you.
Talking of thinking differently and embracing different ways of thinking, different cultures, I know you recently went off on your travels around Laos. So can you tell us about the importance of changing your environment and coming back with new experiences?
Yep. I think that was pretty transformative for me. I spent 3 months away, actually, this year. It's the longest trip I've taken. I hadn't taken more than 3 weeks off previously. I did have my laptop with me, I have to confess, and there was bits of work done on the side of a dirt track occasionally when I could get a signal. But other than that, yes, just in a radically different environment where there aren't the same pressures, there aren't the same priorities. The 20 things that would bother you or you think were important in day-to-day life here, completely gone, and no one cares about them over there either. So it's just really, it's such a reality check. It builds so much perspective about what the hell am I doing? What am I actually focusing my time on? Incredibly powerful. If you get the opportunity to take yourself out of everything and plant yourself somewhere like that, middle of nowhere, in the jungle and the mountains of places like that, where there is nothing, and you have to worry about getting to the next town before nightfall. Otherwise, God knows where you're going to sleep and where you're going to find some food. That really makes you understand what's important when you get back to Bristol and carry on your job. So that was a really powerful experience, and I'm making sure now that I'm spending more time outside in the countryside. I know it's obvious, but I mean it's still worth saying. You've just got to get out there and touch grass, as they say. It is really important, and I know it's obvious, but yeah, it's worth saying.
So Simon, the world of business has changed dramatically over the years. I think there's still an air of the corporateness amongst big businesses, but primarily you're working with early stage founders who are more accustomed to wearing t-shirts than a suit. Do you think perception is important in the world of business?
I started Gravitywell with the mantra that I would never wear a suit, and that was very, very important to me back then. I didn't want to compromise on who I was. It's not that my personality was framed by not wearing a suit. It's just that I thought, I don't really want anyone else telling me what I can and can't wear to work. So I started with that attitude, and looking back, I think I may have lost jobs because I looked a bit scruffy. I got dreadlocks and wasn't smartly dressed. Pretty sure I lost some work as a result of that. And at the time I thought, well, that's the acid test. That's not the kind of work I wanted, not the kind of client I wanted, so fine, moved on. But, that slows things down, right? So you don't win the work, you don't bring the money in. So that was a problem. The world of work has changed. People are more open-minded. I still notice some stuff going on. I won't name names, but there was a very awkward conversation with a client who had to sort of voice the concerns of the procurement department, a very large organisation. And we can only guess at what the conversation was that had gone in the background, but this poor lady who we'd known for maybe a year, very good relationship, had to say to me, there are concerns that you look a bit free-spirited.
Jesus.
They were worried that we were suddenly going to disappear and I was going to become a yoga teacher in Goa or something. So we had to have this awkward conversation. How do I reassure a procurement department that's not in the room that I'm serious about business and I'm here to stay and I want to do a good job?
Well, the fact you started the company in 2001 should be some indication.
You'd think, but no. So I think there's still a bit of that. But if we don't push back against it, it's not going to change. So, I'm going to carry on, looking a bit scruffy. And I try not to judge anyone else for how they appear. I mean, this is the world we want to live in, right? So I think, there's a little bit of it still, and you can choose your journey. There may be a little bit of compromise, but I think it's much better than it used to be.
With that in mind, what is one of your biggest benefits of being in charge of your own destiny? Is it the freedom? Is it, living life on your own terms? What's the driver for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is exactly that. I thought I want to be in control of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, the irony is, as I was saying earlier, it doesn't feel like I'm in control of it at all. So other people are controlling my calendar. But no, it is that's where I came from. It's like I want to make my own decisions. I want to help clients in the way that I think is appropriate. I want to build the kind of products and services that I want to build. I only want to work with the kind of clients that I want to work with. I don't want to work with, gambling businesses and things like that. I want to work with people who are trying to do some good in the world. And the end result of that thought process is, I'm going to have to run it myself.
I know we already talked about introversion. Maybe it's just one of my favorite topics, but I wanted to pick up on the piece about gaining external support. And it was something that Simon was talking about and saying, that he's got better at getting that external support, which I think you really do need to kind of push through and do as an introvert. But I also wanted to mention that I think it's really okay to go inward for support as well, especially as an introvert. Actually, some of your strengths are that you are very good at doing that introspection and you are good at problem solving for yourself and you can regenerate your energy through doing that. And so sometimes talking to people and going out and asking for support feels really hard if you're introverted, like not just kind of cognitively hard, but also just physically, it takes up a lot of energy. And if you're already feeling you're having problems or your energy is drained, then going inward is also an okay thing to do. That's not mental health or medical advice because it might be completely wrong from that perspective, but it's definitely my experience. And it's again a kind of permission slip for myself as an introvert to go, oh, why am I not reaching out to all these people around me more? Because I have loads of great people around me. Well, actually, it's because maybe the more effective way to problem solve something is also to come back and to trust myself and to come back into me. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and I think as well, like you've got to be clear on what the ask is to that person. Like, what are you actually asking for support with? Like,
Yeah.
what is the cadence? You know, duration. Like, what are you expecting in return? Like, it can be quite hard to sort of navigate that, and also finding people with the right experience, because ultimately you want somebody who's kind of to a certain extent achieved something that you aspire to achieve, and that does narrow down the field even further. So it depends, what type of support you're looking for.
And you kind of need that, but alongside somebody who knows you or your business and how that works. And so that can often be hard as well, because it's one thing, like a lot of the people out there who've succeeded and done amazing things, their stories probably aren't going to apply to you as well. So you sometimes it is hard to find that kind of sweet spot on the exact right person. And
the right time as well.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Is it location based? Was it online? Like there's so many different factors. And that quite quickly can become a bit overwhelming. So I'm not saying don't ask for help. You definitely should if you need to.
But be okay with going in first. And maybe it's my whole thing of like, it's just where I'm at the moment, but hermit first, like come into yourself first, ask yourself those questions, ask yourself, to your point about like what do you actually need and want from these people, because I've definitely done the thing where you go, I've got these people in my network and I know I should reach out to them, and something's happened that's meant it's a good opportunity to reach out to them. And then you get to the end of the conversation and they're like, well, what can I do for you? And you're like, I'll let you know when it's like the right thing. And it feels, and I come away from that thinking, did I just waste everyone's time because I didn't have a clear ask at that moment? Which, I also accept is fine. But it does sometimes feel a bit like,
and that just reflecting on my own experience, I've had a few sort of mentors or advisors in the past, and you kind of look for them at different stages of what you're doing. And I think sometimes, like particularly early on in that journey, I think if you're maybe going out for the first time trying to source some support, then looking back on that now, I feel like I was expecting too much, or looking for some golden bullet, or like someone's going to fix everything, and that that they might open a door for you, or help you refine your value proposition, or they're going to be doing quite specific things for you. They're not.
They can't do
going to
everything.
keep you accountable, like do everything for you. So I think, just maybe bear that in mind. Like what is the couple of things that you really need help with? Yeah, and it's like it comes back to I guess being a bit more driven by intent, like you're going into something and you want something out of it, and actually it's way better to be clearer about that rather than kind of maybe talking about everything and not getting anything out of it. I think that's
I also recognize some of the people I work with call me their business therapist, and I do also recognize that part of support which can be really helpful, which is just allowing somebody to basically
decompress.
Exactly, and feel seen, feel heard, help them unpick a few things, but it might not feel like a big thing. So I think there is some value in that as well.
Yeah. Maybe it's like you have that person for that piece, and then things will come out of that conversation, then you look for your specific people as a result of whatever comes out of that, because you do need time, particularly if you're feeling isolated as a founder, to get things off your chest, and most people probably don't quite understand what you do or what you're driven by, and you're probably a bit misunderstood.
Definitely. And quite perfectionist a lot of the times. Like people hold themselves to a high standard, which actually like leads me on nicely to one of the things I wanted to talk about from this section. Failure, which obviously we talk about a lot actually on this podcast. Failure it's not a new topic to be talking about in the context of entrepreneurship. We've definitely spoken about it before. But as Simon was talking about this, I kind of went, and maybe everybody else has been thinking about it like this already, and this is just me having a realization. But the way he spoke about that kind of earlier business failure, and then how some of that has kind of gone into Mezze, I really started to like the idea as failure not only as a stepping stone to success, but actually as the raw material for success. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is the difference between you've got to fail a lot, because what that shows is you're out there and you're doing stuff.
And you're pushing yourself.
Yeah, you're pushing yourself and you're getting the numbers in. So there's a chance that you'll meet the right people or you'll do the right thing, because you're getting out there, and the more times you fail, the more times you succeed. But I actually think there's more of a subtlety than that, which is those failures. And again, I know we've spoken about this before, but like those failures are lessons learned, or they are connections made, or they're problems identified, or they're, so like they really are the fabric of your next stages of success, or they can be.
It's just like opening the door for something else, isn't it? Or the next stage or the next step.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, if you haven't identified it yet, then that needs to come out in the wash.
And I think I've mentioned this book, Amy Edmondson's Right Kind of Wrong. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast quite a while ago now, but I may as well bring it up again now, because she talks about different types of failures and the ones that are helpful and the ones that are not. So it's probably worth flagging that as well. The idea that actually not every failure is helpful, and it can just drain energy and money and leave you in a worse off position. Like that can definitely happen. However, if you establish all of your experiences in the right way, and you know that as you're working through those experiences that there are things that you want to learn, that you want to gain, and you're able to take those things from it, then that's a right kind of wrong, according to this book. I mean, I'm obviously very much paraphrasing it and butchering the concepts that are in this book, but essentially that's it. Is like, how do you fail right? And there is such a thing as not failing right. And we can't just say like every failure is going to be a success. However, it can be this fabric.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily feel like a success at the time either.
God, no, yeah.
a lot of it is looking back in retrospect, isn't it?
So I guess we were saying, if you're failing or feeling like you're failing right now, like figure out if there are things you can take from it, that you can learn from it, but also just like sometimes just getting through some things, coming out the other side, giving yourself a chance to land and then move on, and you might find things emerge from that in the future. The other thing that came up, actually thinking about perfectionism, I liked the conversation that you had about time management. So I think what Simon said was, I wish I could plan ahead more than that, but I can't work in time blocks, and anything can happen at any time in both businesses. And there's like, actually, that's what he wanted. That's actually fun. And as somebody else with a portfolio career, I do like that. But also I realized that all the time, like pretty consistently, I'm always trying to be like, what does the perfect week look like? And listening to him made me go, why am I trying to find the perfect week? Because actually that's exactly what many of us as entrepreneurs are pushing back against. Like we don't want to be in an office and like have exactly the same thing every week or every day from a certain period of time. Like, why are we trying to go for this kind of perfect time management when actually the opportunity comes from something more flexible, more adaptable, and not knowing?
Yeah, and I think as well, if you've got that idea in your head about this perfect week, whatever that looks like you probably be guilty that you're not achieving that, or you're going to be harder on yourself, and it's going to have a kind of a circling nature about getting more frustrated and not achieving it. So
I mean, this is definitely my reality. I'm like this all the time, like trying to create these perfect weeks, and then I'm like, oh, but it doesn't all fit in a week. What's the perfect fortnight? And so this is how my brain works all the time. So it was really valuable to hear this. Whereas if you're like, actually, let's relax into that flow and realize that I do want some structure, and I think it is helpful for me, and I think many people find it incredibly helpful. And there's different ways to create structure depending on how your brain works. But actually trying to be too perfectionist with it is not helping anyone and only getting you more stressed. I read a good quote recently. Somebody said, like, when I lie down at night and look up at the ceiling, like, how will I know if I've had a good day or achieved what I achieved? And they basically did something very simple at the start of the day. Said, my intention for today is to achieve X. It's just like something really small. Yeah. But if you've achieved that, then... Do you know what my brain does? I'm like... I kind of do that. And I've definitely had phases in my life when I've done that in a very conscious way. I do tend to now just go like, what are my priorities for the day?
Yeah.
But in the back of my brain, I'm going, yeah, but if I do that a bit quicker, then I can get this done and I can do that and I can do that. And then I'll have done these things, then my life will be much easier. And so I'm always, and I guess that's what it is, right? You're trying to get ahead so that you then feel like you've got more space. And but actually, and again, this came up in this episode, maybe to get more space, sometimes you just need to step back, gain perspective. Simon's point of view, where he just went away and gained this perspective because he'd actually been in a totally different environment and totally different priorities. Yeah, it sounds like that trip has really helped Simon to see things a little bit differently. So let's go into part 3 and see like what it's shown him and how it's going to help him as he goes into his future.
So Simon, what's in store in the next 5 years for both Mezze and Gravitywell? And do you foresee any trends happening in either the startup space or the food manufacturing space as well?
So with Mezze, I think it's a very clear trajectory we're on. We're sort of transitioning into a scale-up. So our ambition now is to get into the US. So that's quite an exciting prospect. A lot of challenges, very different challenges in doing that. So we're starting to engage with some potential clients, potential partners to move into that. Innovate UK are going to support us with that journey, which is fantastic. So they believe in what we're trying to do. They believe in it as a business longer term, and our ambitions to sort of grow fairly rapidly. So I think a lot of my focus is on that scale up, is on the strategy, it's on partnerships, relationships in that space. Food manufacturing as a whole, it could really do with some modernisation. So it's about breaking down those barriers, being able to talk about technology, software, efficiency, storing data properly. Nobody's storing data properly. How do we improve food waste if we don't know what we're wasting? You can't do it. So that's a big challenge. We need to be talking about that more. And that's also where there is opportunity. That's the double-edged sword, really, of these problems is, yeah, it's not working very well, but there's the opportunity. Gravitywell in the entrepreneur space, I mean, it's rapidly changing. As always, we've had a real drought of investment money over the last year or so, and that's been a big problem for the whole industry. This stuff comes in waves, so it will come back again, and then people will be spending money on crazy stuff again. So that will always be the case in that industry. It's all this sort of boom and bust cycle that goes on in the entrepreneurship space. But again, the flip side of that is just it's very exciting. So it's difficult for me to predict, other than that cycle, what's going to happen. AI is the elephant in the room, as always. That is having an impact. It's not going to replace everybody's jobs, but it can make things more streamlined. It can, like we were saying earlier, you can get to a prototype, you can get to something usable faster, and that's a good thing. It's not something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. So obviously it's AI, but it's the future is also that cycle that keeps going.
So Simon, this is going to be a hard question to distill down all of your advice, 20 plus years of running businesses, into just one thing that you would pass on to an early stage founder. So what would that be?
I think they all come under the category of open-mindedness. It's the attitude in which you go into being an entrepreneur. It's the attitude in which you engage with people like Gravitywell to help you on that journey. It's the attitude that you go into pitch meetings with. You need to be open-minded. You need to be accepting of feedback, willing to adapt and change. If you're coming at it too rigid, you've got this idea in your head and it needs to be exactly that, then things are going to go wrong. So I think that mindset is becoming more common, but it's still it could still be discussed more, and I think it's worth highlighting to entrepreneurs how important that is.
So Simon, I know you had a question for our listeners. So what was your question?
Yes, I was thinking about my introvertedness and that change that happened for me at some point in my career. And so I wonder of your audience, other introverts, I'd be curious to know whether you see your introvertedness as a sort of barrier or some kind of blocker in your career, or have you sort of reassessed what that means and recognised that potentially spending more time reflecting, spending more time considering, not making decisions too hastily, that's actually really powerful and is possibly even a superpower. So that's the question really. Do you see it as a blocker, or do you see it as something that enables you in your career?
Great question there, Simon. We'll get some answers to that on our socials for you. Where can people find out a bit more about Gravitywell, Mezze, and you personally?
So Gravitywell, gravitywell.co.uk, Bristol's venture studio, and Mezze is at mezze.io, so MEZZE.io, and I'm on LinkedIn, very much available there.
And Simon, I know you wanted to talk about a particular client that came to you with a kind of crazy idea, and you helped them refine that and bring that to market. So can you tell us a bit more about that particular journey?
Yeah, of course. So ADHD Love is a couple that post on social media about ADHD, obviously, and other ND, neurodivergent topics. And they're pretty popular. They've sort of got 2.5 million followers. And they came to us with a challenge of monetizing that audience without sort of ripping them off, and do it in a respectful manner. A lot of influencers will just be flogging junk on TikTok, and they really don't want to do that. And their audience, arguably is a little bit vulnerable, and so we have to respect all of that. There's this phenomena called body doubling, where if someone that's got relatively serious ADHD will struggle to do ordinary daily tasks, make the bed, get dressed, brush their teeth, that kind of thing, for some reason, and it's quite interesting that point, what is that reason? If there's someone else there present with them, then they can get through that whole journey much easier. They can complete that task much easier, and that's called body doubling. So someone will be there present to do it with you. So the challenge was to us from the client, how do we make a body doubling app? How do we make that magic through an app so that literally anybody can download the app and get the bed made, can tidy the bedroom, get up and go for work themselves? And we were like, wow, okay, no idea. So we got together a steering group, I mentioned that earlier, to try and figure out if we could do that through an app, through content, through little tools and tricks within the app to get people to do it. Turns out we could, which is amazing. So we launched that back in November last year. Huge success, fortunately. So that's turned into its own business now. We're planning other products and projects with the client. It's really exciting. But the thing that keeps us going is seeing all the posts on social media with people's before and after photos of their bedroom saying, this app has changed my life, right? My whole house is completely messy, and now I'm able to consistently keep it tidy. This has changed my life. And it's seeing those messages. This is every day. We're going to message, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's changed my life. I mean, that is such a powerful story. That keeps us going. It's working with people like that and having that kind of outcome that just makes the whole thing worthwhile.
What a powerful message, and how transformational technology can be. Simon, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's been great. Thanks a lot, Ollie.
We'll have to get ADHD Love on the podcast as well. That sounds like a great story. Yeah, I think they would be really good. And no doubt they were helped by Simon's experience and his open-minded approach, because they're doing something different. I love these kind of creative, collaborative things that are out there. So let's talk about that piece of advice. It's all about open-mindedness and the attitude that founders bring in, being able to accept feedback, willing to accept change, being open-minded. And I think a lot of founders find it quite hard to get that balance right. In many cases, and I'm sure we've had this with quite a few people that have been on the podcast as well, right, where they've got such a fixed idea of what good looks like. And of course, that kind of can take you a certain way, but does it really help you on that entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think, running a business, as we've said many times before on the podcast, it is the best personal development journey you could ever go on. And it will force you to look at every aspect of your life, identify what you're good at, what you're not good at, and what you want to improve on.
Yeah. One of the things that I think can be challenging in that balance is that you're learning and developing all the time, like for yourself and for the business. And sometimes it feels like people want you to say something really definitive. And it's certainly with the earlier stage companies I work with, that's often part of the challenge that they seem to be fighting against. I've noticed it a lot with people who take a lot of other advice actually and go out there and kind of listen to other people and got a lot of inputs coming in, and then they feel like they have to be this super polished version of themselves with a sort of very fixed viewpoint of this is what the business is, this is what we're doing, kind of pitching it in a very fixed way when it's not actually fixed. And I think there's something about having that comfort of being like knowing what it is you're doing, even though you don't actually know what it is you're doing. And so if people can step out of that and kind of maybe go into something that might feel uncomfortable to them, which is actually what you really want to be doing is having conversations, is observing, is listening, is, you know, before doing that pitching side of it. And I do think people struggle with that, especially in the early days.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's uncomfortable, right? Let's just say what it is. Like, it is uncomfortable putting up with that level of uncertainty. So you've got to find a way to deal with that. And some people will be like sponges and gathering so much information, industry news, speaking to people in the space. I guess there's a balance there between seeking, you know, knowledgeable thought leadership type voices to being a bit potentially overwhelmed by too much information. So yeah, it depends on your personality type.
It does. Well, and it was interesting because for me, this kind of came back to the introvert side of things again as well. And maybe it's more coming back to knowing yourself and doing, like you said, that self-development, which is so important. And being open-minded about yourself, actually, and not seeing yourself as one fixed identity. And so that, coming back to the introverted way, which is sort of asynchronous before going out there and doing things that are synchronous, because I definitely know that I can be a bit of a mirror. So if I've got other people out there who are very, very keen to give me very confident advice, then in the moment, I might kind of mirror back to them that's, oh yeah, you're right. Like, maybe how does that work for me? And almost putting those views on a pedestal. Whereas the more time I spend with myself, I'm better able to synthesize those things and find like my clear path through all that information. Whereas for other people, I know they talk about the Van de Graaff generator and the idea that as soon as they start talking to somebody else, it really focuses their thoughts. And so it's kind of a flip on how I feel. But that idea of like, what allows you to really focus your thoughts and understand and take all of that noise and all that kind of chaos and messiness and turn it into something that feels clear, and it will be different for different people.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with having kids, like everybody's got a view on, you know, advice for new parents. And, you know, you've got to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, like any advice, if it's business advice or parenting advice or relationship advice, whatever it is, there might be some truth and value in what is being said to you, but it might not apply to your own circumstances.
A friend of mine tried to give me they actually asked, because I'm currently going through a bit of an autoimmune flare-up, and I'd posted about it online, and they were like, oh, my wife's been going through something similar. Do you want to hear what's worked? And I was like, oh, that's really nice. But I did say to them when I went back to them, I'm like, I've been navigating this for 20 years, so I may have tried everything that you're going to say to me. And so I kind of almost like caveated that with them as well as with myself before it came back. And I think it's the same in entrepreneurship too, right? Like a lot of these things, like you've heard the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's probably coming from a place of trying to help, but actually, is it helpful? It might not be. Like, we're talking about autism, the quote that always sticks with me: if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it. And it's
not
like
the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It's and so it's that knowing yourself is the most important thing, and then as a founder, like knowing your business and the business you're creating, and that's the most important thing. So finding your systems, your processes, your routines that allow you to get that good outside information, to be open-minded, to test the market and test ideas, and then be able to move forward in a way that is focused. But knowing what that is that works for you will be different than it is for other people. You don't have to just copy every bit of advice that you hear.
Yeah, definitely don't copy every bit of advice.
Don't. So all of that perhaps already indicates what my response to Simon's question would be. So Simon's question was, for other introverts, do you see your introvertedness as a barrier/blocker? Or is there benefits to it? So if you are introverted, don't forget to go to LinkedIn and answer that question from Simon. But yeah, I think we've kind of covered this already quite a lot today. There's definitely strengths in it. I see it as being a very powerful thing to be able to, have kind of go inward and take that time and be able to figure things out and, not make decisions immediately or not be, influenced directly by each piece of information that you're hearing. But of course, you do have to be very aware that that's how you are and craft your life, your practices in such a way that you know how to navigate them. So, Ollie, can you tell us about our next guest?
Yeah, so we are speaking to Oliver Bruce, who is an exited entrepreneur and fellow podcaster. So can't wait to dive into the chat with him.
Amazing. If you like what you've heard today, don't forget, as we said at the beginning, to go and share this with your community, with your friends, your family, other business owners. Please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget that there's a big selection of previous episodes. Just search Founded and Grounded on your favorite podcast player.